Very soon in the UK, we'll have something known as Max and Kira's Law, named after a little boy who received a heart transplant and the little girl who donated it. This new law means that we will all be presumed organ donors unless we decide to opt out. Over in the States, however, where donation is based on an opt-in model, they are thinking creatively about how to plug their organ donation shortfall, paying special attention to living donors. Debate has broken out about whether financial incentives should be offered in return for organs, as they can be, for example, in Iran. The alarm bells ring loud to me on this one, because paying people for body parts should surely be avoided at all costs.
It's a tricky one, Michelle. I think you're right to raise it. I don't think I agree with you, though. I mean, I think we can all agree that the opt-in model is probably a good thing, but where it's been tried in Wales and so on, so far the results show it doesn't make it.
We have opt-out now.
Opt-out, beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Well, where it's been tried, essentially, that you're presumed that you will donate unless you say you won't. It doesn't seem to have made that much difference. What has made a difference in Iran, for example, is where people are paid for organ donation. The Americans are really bothered about this because it's a big deal. It's particularly a big deal, by the way, amongst African Americans, 3 times as likely as average to suffer from or to need a kidney transplant. I understand the ick factor here. I really get that. But the question is, do we want to save lives? And to be honest, I think we've already sold the pass on this issue of, as it were, sharing organs. I mean, frankly, we've paid for ages for sperm donors, and now we pay for surrogacy. The average amount we pay is $7,000 to $15,000. Now, we say that's for expenses, but in reality, the truth is the money is changing hands. And I think I get your feeling about it, but the question is, do we want to save people's lives or not? And if this is a way to do it, then we should do it.
But for me, the question, of course you should want to save people's lives, but offering people, like if you look at a place like Iran, it's often life-changing amounts of money to, you know, cut open, it's not the same as sperm, you know, you're cutting open your body to sell a body part. And when you're looking around, there's like on lampposts and stuff, you've got like pictures and things, you know, kidney and this is my blood type and for sale, and then you've got a black market that pops up where you can get more money and the private, well, it's not private, but under the black market. I just think there's something, where do you draw the line? If I'm going to incentivise you to cut open your body, I just think it's a bit...
I'll let Rachel in a second, but you're the one who is usually at this table saying we should trust ordinary people's instincts on moral questions and not tell them what to do. What you want to do, what you're saying is, let's protect the potential donor from their worst instincts. Surely we need to trust people to deal with that. It's a moral choice, I agree, but let's let other people who make their own moral choices rather than imposing it on them.
But they're making their moral choices from a position of financial desperation, and that worries me.
No, I just wanted to bring in the National Kidney Foundation and what they have to say about this issue. Profiteering as a result of organ donation means that people could be coerced or forced into donation. Exploitation of donors worldwide is a serious issue that takes advantage of those who are most underprivileged and vulnerable. It has been demonstrated that selling kidneys has little long-term impact on the seller's financial security and may actually end up worse financially, medically and psychologically.
I shall be opting out, and the reason is, and this is a bit personal. Yeah, I don't want my organs harvested, and the reason for that is that I had a brother who, at the age of 17, and I might have told this story before, so apologies if you have, but it is fairly pertinent to me, who at the age of 17 was catapulted out of the backseat of a car headfirst into a lamppost in Camberwell, south-east London. He was then taken to the brilliant King's College Hospital in 1968. I remember to this day, it was May the 11th, 1968, where my parents were informed that he was dead and they wanted to harvest his organs. And my parents, and they said, and pardon the language, but it was of the time, he will remain a spastic. He will have, that was the language of the time in 1968, and he will have no quality of life. My parents balked at that, and a brilliant surgeon saved my brother's life. He was unconscious from May the 11th, 1968 to August the 31st, 1968. Unconscious, I remember it every bout. And he went on to have 34 years of life as a reporter on the Daily Mirror. 34 years. He died 19 years ago last week. He had lost the sight of an eye, his left arm was slightly spasticated, he spoke as if he'd had a minor stroke. He was an absolute tower in my life and in my children's life, massive, massive figure in my children's life. That's why I will not. And I believe body belongs to me, not the state.
But without being insensitive,
no, of course.
That's an awful story.
No. But I know if I wanted an organ, I might have a different view. But I just wanted to give you the background.
I remember you telling that story as well. So, you know, that is a very terrible, it sounds like a medical mistake. This person, you know, wasn't in that situation. They shouldn't be harvesting organs. But if you'd died, and you'd actually died, wouldn't you want, you know, I'm not talking about anomalies where there's a mistake.
I totally respect it.
But
I absolutely respect it. And if I wanted a kidney, I'd probably have a different view. But I'm so informed as a young man by growing up by that experience, a very difficult thing for me to move on from. I'm sure you can appreciate that.
Of course.
But that's the point, isn't it, Nick? We should give people the right to make that kind of moral choice.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I had not heard that before, and I can see why you take the view you take.
But I respect the other side. I totally respect the other
If I
side.
may, let me ask you a question. If the person who needed the organ was your son or your daughter,
Yep.
where would you go?
No, I get it, absolutely. I'm arguing against myself. Trevor, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And if it was me, you're absolutely right.
Well, in 2002, my husband was on the organ donor list for a life-saving liver transplant, and there were no organs available, and he was on we had very small children then, and we waited and waited, and we would ring Adam Brooks, where he was on the transplant register, and we'd say, and they'd say no. Then they'd say, pray for a cold winter, because, you know, your only hope is a road traffic accident, so what they call RTAs. And it wasn't a very cold winter, but in February, suddenly we got the call that there was, after 4 months, and he was about to be struck off the register, because protocols mean if you're not going to benefit from a donor organ, then the donor organ has to go to a more suitable candidate. So we were very lucky, and the system of presumed consent wasn't operational. It was an opt-in system, not an opt-out system. And obviously I'm very grateful that there was a family agreed on a deathbed to have their son's organs used, one of which, the liver of which benefited my husband and saved his life and gave the children their father back. So to me this is a really emotional subject, and I'm very much in favour of the opt-in Kira's law, and we're going to hear from the government minister in a minute. But I have to say that my husband agrees with Nick.
Really?
And he thinks, despite having benefited from a donor organ, that the state should not be involved in the capture and retrieval of organs. Can we just hear from the minister on Kira's law, Max and Kira's law now? The incredible gift of organ donation means that one family's tragedy can bring new hope for another. At the moment, the chances of this are lower because of the shortage of available organs and tissues. Max and Kira's law can help change that, saving many more lives every year. I encourage everyone to take this opportunity to have a conversation with their families and friends about their organ donation wishes and register a decision. That was Minister for Care, Helen Whately.
Can I ask a devil's advocate question?
Yeah.
So it's not about the finances. What are you guys' thoughts if you opt out, so you say, I don't want to be a donor, and you've opted out, so you're on the register as saying, opt out, leave me alone. If you then find yourself in a health situation where you need a donor to save your life, if you've opted out, do you think that that should affect your ability to receive?
No.
I get your argument, but I'm going to say I get your point.
I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just devil's advocate.
I say no. It's a real moral dilemma, isn't it? But I would say no.